What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a first impressions video for Dredge, a sort of odd title that was very popular that released last year in particular. And while I initially said I was going to wait a little longer to jump into this one in a video a couple days ago, I decided to go ahead and pull the trigger because I've been streaming a challenge here lately, and this gives me an opportunity to play something a little more lighthearted that doesn't require quite as much of my attention as something like Drova. But the reason I wanted to check Dredge out is because it's one of those games that is very unique. In fact, basically what it is a Lovecraftian fishing game that focuses also on exploration, which is a very bizarre combination of factors that also has I would say, very Shadow over Innsmouth vibes. And it's doing some really fun stuff even here in the early game. So essentially, the game itself starts off pretty much right in the thick of it. You yourself wake up on a dock, apparently after arriving here following a shipwreck, and you more or less get co-opted into being the town's new fisherman. This is going to see you going out into the water, of course, which has various types, and using the boat they've provided you that you have to pay off a loan for in order to catch various fish. And that forms how you get your money, upgrade your boat and everything, and that's the basic gameplay loop. But the brilliant thing about Dredge, so far at least, has been that they've taken that relatively simple premise and then turned it into so much more. So first impressions wise, this game oozes atmosphere. Everything from making the water itself dangerous, the ocean feel dangerous, while also being mysterious at the same time, and they even play around with some cool mechanics in order to do that. To give a quick example of that, one of the things that they do at nighttime, outside of make everything much more dangerous, is that if you don't have your lights turned on, certain assets in the game, like rocks and stuff, will just disappear, so you can't see them until you've hit them, essentially, unless you have those lights, which means you have to cut through things like the fog, etc. And that's to say nothing of all the villagers and things that we'll talk to that seem shifty, to put it generously, with many of them clearly not telling you the whole truth while also being extremely creepy at the same time. But what is our actual goal here? Well, outside of just fishing for things, which we'll get into, after you do a couple of the introductory quests to introduce you to the game's systems, you have to start tracking down relics, the first of which you'll find by catching corrupted fish known as aberrations. Normal fish or other aquatic animals that have turned, let's say, into something else. And upon turning one of those into the fishmonger, you get sent to go find a collector of sorts who sends you on a hunt by hooking up your boat with a dredge crane, allowing you to shift through wreckage of things, in order to find certain artifacts that he wants you to collect for him, and that seems to comprise the bulk of the story. The catch here being that this sends you to various parts of this ocean-based world to explore the different biomes and everything, and give you a reason to do all this fishing and whatnot. And upon doing so, you also wind up getting like abilities for your ship, such as haste right away. And while all of that is well and good, Dredge really doesn't stop there. In fact, there's a lot going on here just in terms of the gameplay loop, such as the upgrade systems. You'll find research parts that you can then spend on research, as you might imagine, various fishing poles, nets, etc. to upgrade your ship with. And once you research them, you can then go purchase them from the various shops. But then there is the shipwright who will actually sell upgrades to your ship itself, like better lights, the better equipment we just mentioned, on top of, once you've gotten a little ways into the game, opening up a dry dock in order for you to actually upgrade the space of your ship, because the actual hull matters, with you having to do things like manage the inventory of your cargo hold in relation to how many ship you can carry in a sort of little tile-based inventory system. Now, the fishing itself is pretty straightforward. You can get equipment and stuff that does this automatically for you, but most of it is done via the form of like a mini game, where you simply click at certain intervals on what you see on screen, and depending on the type of fish you're after, the exact look of that mini game might change, but the gist of it is always the same. And for accessibility reasons, it looks like they turned an option in the game to not allow you to lose that, basically, if that's a concern for you. But one thing you'll have to do while you are doing all that fishing and gathering up money and everything to upgrade your ship to get out into those farther areas to find the artifacts is simply watch out for your surroundings, both in terms of causing damage to your ship the normal way by running into things, etc., but also because nighttime is a dangerous place. And as the game itself tells you, you'll more than likely want to be back in town before before sunrise. Now you can rest in your boat at the dock in order to pass time back to dawn or, whatever other time you choose to interrupt it at, which might be important for both catching certain fish as well as completing certain quests, as the world seems decently interactable. Now, it's my understanding one of the DLCs focuses on building up a whole little town but even some of the other quests also see you setting up little hub areas, and in order to both upgrade your actual ship and participate in things like that, you have to gather materials by dredging them from out in the world, which is a whole thing, all while you're dealing with that initially limited space. And the crazy thing about Dredge, as far as first impressions go, is that each one of those things individually sounds very average. But already, just right away, they seem to come together to form something especially ominous at the very least. Like I said, the game oozes atmosphere. For instance, one moment you're sailing along only to see something massive swim under your boat, and that's to say nothing of the horrors that await you at the open sea anyway, especially at nighttime. Now, speaking for myself, I'm mostly curious to see how much the story around these occult and Lovecraftian elements actually gets explained, because you can find things like messages in bottles and whatnot that go into some of the creepy lore hanging out here, and I think for myself at least, the overall satisfaction I'll glean from this title comes down to simply, does that narrative arc reach a satisfying conclusion, even if that happens to be a typically Lovecraftian solution where the ending is, let's say, less than pleasant for everyone involved. But if they can nail that and manage to keep the mechanics of actually doing things like fishing and whatnot interesting along the way, then I think it'll be a good time. Now, realistically, I don't expect this review to take me very long. I've looked up some estimates and most places seem to put a 100% for this around 20 hours, so you'll probably see this in just a handful of days, but it's something to keep me busy while I do that streaming challenge on the side this week, which is where we are at. So hopefully you're looking forward to all that. If you are, certainly like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz, be sure to stick around. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.